Give everybody just one more minute. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the goals page, goals and objectives page, and the sneak peek preview for the updates that EDPlan will be releasing later this summer. We're excited to see you, and all that we can see your team. Okay, it's gone. It's gone. If your chat does not allow all participants, you might have to scroll all the way up to the top. But if you can, in the chat box where it says send to, it will change to all participants. That would be very helpful for us, so that if you have a question during our presentation, we can answer it for you. Amy, Angela will drop that PowerPoint in again in just a few minutes. She does it a couple of times for us as we start the presentation. So if you don't, oh, see, right there it is. Thanks, Angela. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Michelle DeBerry, and I work at the State Department of Education in the Special Services Office. I'm a program specialist. We all have little bits of areas of expertise, so I generally answer questions on evaluation and eligibility, on related services, therapy, that kind of thing, and also on dyslexia. So joining me today, we have Bobette from PCG. She's going to show you, kind of actually take you through some of the live parts of the new look of EDPlan. After Chelsea and I present a little bit of information for you to build on at the first part. So Chelsea, will you go ahead and introduce yourself too?
Absolutely. My name is Chelsea Bolin, and I am also a program specialist at the State Department of Education in the Special Education Services Department with Michelle. And my focus is primarily on the State Systemic Improvement Plan, as well as instruction and general IEP guidance. So any support that I can give you, I'd love to be helpful to you, and we're excited to share this sneak peek and to help ease that transition.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to get us started today. Like I said, we're going to talk about just overall basic information about writing compliant IEP goals and how you document those weaknesses or deficits in that present levels box, the objective statement on the first page of the IEP or the present levels box. A lot of people love saying the word PLAS. I don't. I usually say present level. So if you hear me say that, please know that's what I'm talking about. Then we're going to talk about some new vocabulary for writing goals in EDPlan. There's just some new pieces. It's not that different, nothing for you to worry about, but we're excited to talk about that. And then, like I said, Bobette's going to take us in and actually show us kind of what it's going to look like when it does go live a little bit later this summer. Again, if you would just, Shelley, I'm not sure why your chat box is grayed out, but I'm seeing your questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat box as we're going, and we'll be happy to try to address those or address those at the end. So let's talk a little bit about writing goals. An IEP really is just a document that determines and documents or details what special education services or what specially designed instruction a student receives from the district or from the school. When we talk about specially designed instruction, that is kind of the qualifier for an IEP, and one of them. We really need to know what the student's weaknesses are, what deficits they have, in addition to strengths, and be sure and document that on that present level box, the objective statement, where we write just general information about the student. When we talk about specially designed instruction, it really just means we're adapting content, methods, delivery, really just to meet the unique needs of that student that have come from, or that the needs that result from the student's disability. Again, in that present levels box, we need to document academic and functional data, weaknesses or deficits, and for every weakness or deficit, we need to have a goal. And for every goal, you need to have a weakness or a deficit listed in that present levels box. You can go ahead and go for it. Thank you. Again, annual goals must be aligned to the student's needs. We want to address those educational needs. We want to identify what the student can reasonably be expected to accomplish within the next 365 days. That could be an annual year, like a calendar year. That can be your IEP year. It could be a school year. But each goal, or part of a goal, we want to make sure that you feel like that student can really accomplish that within the next 365 days. You can also shorten the length of goals. You may have a goal that you think the student can accomplish in a semester, and that's fine. But again, just you want to make sure that the student can accomplish that goal. Goals should help document what skills the student needs in order to master the content of the curriculum. So we need to build skills, not what curriculum content does the student need to master. So we want to build those skills so that the student has access to whatever curriculum they need to work through. Oklahoma academic standards should not be IEP goals. When we have to monitor school districts, this is one of the most common things that we find, that a teacher or district has listed academic standards as an IEP goal. Oklahoma academic standards are really expectations for what all students should be able to do within the end of a specific school year. So those are not individualized. They're not specific for an individual student. And so please don't use Oklahoma academic standards as IEP goals. Even though some days we think that that goal bank has been gone from EDPlan, and some days it's still there. It's not varying back and forth. I'm kind of being silly, but please don't use Oklahoma academic standards. Again, they're not individualized. They don't meet the requirements of the IDEA. We do want to use Oklahoma academic standards as a guide. Again, those are the things that the student grade level should be able to accomplish. But really, our goals are to help the student meet that standard. So your goals really should be those baby steps that you take to help a student reach that specific standard. For our students that take the BLM or OAP, the Oklahoma Academic Standards Extended are still in EDPlan. And again, please just make sure that you're really using those as individualized, and you may need to edit them to make them individualized. When we talk about IEP goals, they need to be SMART goals. And for a SMART goal, it really stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So specific, your goal needs to be clearly stated. Measurable, we need to know that the goal is able to be measured, and that any change can be identified. And so you need to know, or everyone on the team needs to be able to know that, hey, this student has met this goal. There needs to be common language there. It needs to be attainable and high priority for the student. A good question to ask is, hey, is this a practical goal for the student? Again, is it clearly observable? It should be very, very meaningful to both parents and teachers. And again, just a priority for the team to be able to reach that goal. And then relevant, does it address specific needs, whether they're academic, social, behavioral, etc. And it needs to be ambitious and challenging. Remember I said we want to be able to accomplish it in a school year, calendar year, 365 days, but it also needs to be ambitious, and so that we're really making that step forward. And then time bound, what time frame is this goal, how this goal would be achieved for the students. I think Chelsea's going to take over from here.
Okay, so we're going to go over some examples of present level statements and turning them into goals from that information that we put in the present levels. So the first one that's going to pop up is Joe cannot decode or blend single syllable 4-letter words, and a related goal would be, given a set of 10 4-letter single words, Joe will decode them accurately at a rate of 25 words correct per minute, 95% of the time in 5 out of 5 opportunities. Another present level statement would be that Jennifer struggles in identifying the main idea and supporting details in her grade level text. A goal for that might be, after hearing a story read from her grade level text, Jennifer will correctly state the main idea with 3 to 5 supporting details 95% of the time in 4 out of 5 opportunities. Another statement would be Robert has difficulty interacting with peers. His verbal interactions are negative 85% of the time as measured by teacher-charted data on a 5-point rubric. And a goal would be, given 10 minutes of free play, Robert will engage in 3 verbal interactions with peers using 4-word positive or neutral sentences in 14 out of 20 occasions over a 4-week period as measured by teacher-charted data. And then the last one that we're going to share on here today is Violet is unable to maintain attention to complete a task longer than 2 to 3 minutes as measured by teacher-charted data. And a related goal could be, given a task or direction, Violet will begin the task within 1 minute and remain on task for at least 10 minutes independently with no more than 2 prompts on 8 out of 10 independent tasks as measured by teacher-charted data. So you'll see in all of those goals, they hit all of those components of a SMART goal. So as we go into the next slide, we're going to see the new vocabulary in EDPlan. We have baseline, condition, targeted skill or behavior, and criteria, and all of those equal a goal. And we're going to really define each of those, and you're going to see that there's a connection between this vocabulary and SMART goals. So the baseline is the minimum level of skill, behavior, or performance that a student currently demonstrates. This is that present level statement. Sally is beginning to solve 1-digit multiplication problems. Rex follows 1-step directions inconsistently. Emily spontaneously uses 1-word utterances to express her wants and needs. It's just where that student is right now before you write the goal, where they're performing. The condition specifies a description of the setting and methods used to measure progress. So it could be during small group activities, it could be when given a directive, maybe when asked to complete a 4-piece puzzle. The options are endless, but it really just specifies the setting to really define that setting or method a little bit deeper so that we know how we're measuring progress. The targeted skill or behavior are the specific skill, behavior, or performance that you're trying to change through this goal. So going from, we know Sally can solve 1-digit multiplication problems to Sally will now solve 2-digit multiplication problems. Rex will follow 2-step directions. Emily will spontaneously use 15 or more 2-word combinations to express her wants and needs. It's what we want to change the student behavior to. And that last one is criterion or criteria. And that specifies how much, how often, and to what standard a behavior must occur in order to demonstrate that the goal has been reached. This makes it very clear to everyone on the team and to anyone that read the goal exactly when the student has attained this goal. So for 10 minutes, 4 out of 5 consecutive observable periods within 1 minute, 3 times a day for 2 weeks, 5 times during a 20-minute time period, or in 6 out of 10 trials. It just clearly defines when the student has met that goal. So when we compare this new vocabulary, the baseline, condition, targeted skill and behavior and criteria, that EDPlan goal, to a SMART goal, you can see that we have these clear connections. So you're looking at, is the goal attainable based on data on the student's current baseline? What is the measure of determining that progress? Specific and relevant description of needs and weaknesses to be accomplished, and what is the time frame in which the goal may be met. So all of those, it clearly connects with what's happening in that new verbiage with the SMART goal terminology as well. This is what the page is going to look like in EDPlan, and Bobette is going to walk us through this even more deeply, but we just wanted to show you quickly with those examples that we've given. So there at the top where the arrow is the area of need. This is a drop-down box where you will select the area of need that is appropriate for that goal. Under that, you see the baseline, and this is where you would put that baseline data or baseline statement that we went over just a moment ago. Over to the right, you will see condition, and this is where you will put that condition statement. Underneath that, you have the targeted skill or behavior. Once again, you'll put in your targeted skill or behavior that you're trying to change. Underneath that, you'll put that criteria, how you're going to know that the student has met that goal in that box. And then underneath that, you have the date, and that's the time in which you want to meet that goal. There in the middle underneath is the ESY box. If you have a student that is going to be working on this goal during ESY, you would want to make sure and click that box. This bottom left-hand side are all things that have currently been on EDPlan. So you have the person or position responsible, and so the special ed teacher, for example, underneath that, how often the parent will be informed of progress, or how the parent will be informed, and then underneath that is the frequency of progress towards the goal. And then at the very bottom underneath that is the overall goal comments. This is where you can add additional comments about this goal, and that section has already been there in EDPlan, so that is not new. We do want to remind you, if you have a student that is taking alternate assessments, we do require goals that have benchmark objectives as well. Your district may require objectives for all students in your district that are on an IEP. But as far as the state goes, we require goals for students that are taking the alternate assessment or the DLM. They all must have those benchmark objectives. And we will walk you through how to do that when Bobette goes through that. So some points to remember when developing goals. It's ultimately our goal is to provide a free and appropriate public education for all students. So when you're developing those goals, you really need to think about, what does the student need to learn academically? What are those specific areas of weakness? Do we need to include related services into the IEP? What functional goals does the student need to learn? And those functional goals may include learning to eat independently, using public transportation, communicating with an augmentative communication device, or addressing social and emotional needs, including impulse control, anger management, or appropriate other behavioral alternatives. So just be mindful of all of those things when you're writing goals. As Michelle said earlier, we want to individualize all of our goals. Terry, to address that question about, do goals need to tie in some way to state assessments, you do want to make sure you're aligning to state standards, but ultimately we want to address student needs and deficits through the goals. So I hope that answers that question. So not necessarily directly to state assessments, it is good data to look at, but you do need to make sure it's relevant to the state standards and aligning to that, but still individualizing to student needs. So as you're working to create goals, we want to make sure that our goals are individualized and student specific. But sometimes it's difficult to get your mind going and addressing those needs and coming up with the right words. So these are just some goal bank ideas. We are not endorsing that you use the same goal for every student. You must have individualized and specific, student-specific goals. But these are resources to help get your brain flowing and just to think through ways to word different goals that would address student-specific needs. And ultimately, our goal for all students is the end. We want to help them have successful post-secondary outcomes. So we want to prepare students for those post-secondary education, employment, and independent living. So no matter how old the student that you're working with is, even if it's a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, ultimately we want to think about how is this going to help support them as we move on in school and ultimately get to that post-secondary outcome. On the last slide, you will see Michelle and I's contact information. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have additional questions after this. We'll make sure they are in the slides that Angela has dropped in the chat box as well. We are happy to answer those questions and we hope to answer a lot of them today in the chat. So if you have questions, make sure you're sending that to all participants. And otherwise, I will pass it off to Bobette and we will head back and answer questions along the way.
All right, let me pull up that site and we can go from there. A little switching going on here, so just bear with me for a moment. Got to sneak underneath some of those bars. All right, that is not where I wanted to be. Let's go back over here. That recording is right in the middle of the way there. Okay, let's, here we go.
Bobette, I'm going to answer a question in the chat while you're pulling that up.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome. Debbie, I see that your question is how to write these type of SMART goals for high school students who are mainstreamed. The important thing to think about is what does the student need that requires them to still be on an IEP? So what is that specially designed instruction? Because that's what an IEP is that specially designed instruction. So if they are fully mainstreamed, what are their needs that require them to be on an IEP? And as you think through those needs, think through their weaknesses, think through their deficits, and that's where those SMART goals should pull out. If a student doesn't need any goals, then we need to contemplate, do they really need to be on an IEP? And so just think through the individual student needs and weaknesses to help develop those SMART goals.
And I would add to that, use your evaluation data or whatever assessment data that you have to identify those areas of weakness. And I think we want to think our tendency is to think in big pictures, but sometimes we really need to think in little bites. So for your high school students, you might look at executive functioning kind of goals. How are they able to organize their materials and things like that? It really just depends on the student and what their area of weakness or weaknesses are. So if you want to talk to us specifically about that, you can give either one of us a call and we can kind of help you with more specifically when we know kind of the kiddo that you're talking about.
All right. Okay, so we are on a staging site. This is as it's finishing up, being built, etc. So we're on a staging site of the new UI. I've gone into a student named Kitty Test, and this is the IEP process. These are called tiles. So everything on this top line is required for an IEP. Everything on the second line is dependent upon how things are answered by the team as well as the age of the student. So I'm going to go into the goals and objectives tile, and we're going to look at that particular page. And this is kind of what the page looks like. What you're going to notice if you were on the sneak peek earlier of just the overall navigation of the new facelift that EDPlan's getting, is that things are now kind of all on one page. You don't do the scrolling as much. You don't have to go back up. You know, it doesn't automatically take you back up to the top to scroll back down again. Everything kind of shows up in these panels. And so this is, again, I'm in Kitty, so I'm in my student test. I have add goals and objectives, and then over to the right, you see these links in blue. These used to be those buttons that were at the bottom in green, you know, add a new goal, add a new objective. They were the buttons that were down at the very bottom. Well, now they're available to you just right over to the right side so that you're not doing that bouncing around within the page like you used to do. So if I were going to add a goal, I would just click on this link, and it's going to open up my goal page. This is that information box that was always there that kind of reminds you how to write a SMART goal and what all you're going to do with that. So that's that same information box. Then you have your goal down here. You have an area of need. You see these little bitty arrows? Those are now an indication that there's something underneath that. Either you're expanding something or you're looking at a drop down. So if I click on that, I get to pick my area of need. I'm going to pick academics, math, calculation for this one. And then you see that baseline area. So that's going to be where you put in the information of what they can do or what they are struggling with within class. So this is coming off of your front page. So I'm going to go ahead and put in that she can solve a single-digit multiplication problem with 80% accuracy. That's what she's capable of doing, and we want to grow that. So this next area over here, you notice, is in red. The red means that it's required. It's kind of like when you fill things out online. And so you'll actually put in the condition that you want to have for the student. So I'm copying and pasting just because I can't talk and type. I keep trying it and it just doesn't happen. So I put in multiplication problems requiring double-digit multiplication. So when she's given that condition, what's going to happen? So when you look up here underneath this annual goal, what you see is given multiplication problems requiring double-digit multiplication. You see the student's name, Kitty, will, and now all I have to do is put in what I want her to be able to do, what the goal is. So I'm going to place that over here, and I put it in the box. It changes it from the red because it's now filled in, and it says Kitty will solve them at a 70% accuracy. You have the word by. Now we're going to go ahead and put in the criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and put in copy. I'm going to put that one in there for my criteria. And then here's where the word by is, and you go in and put in the date, which would be the end of the IEP. And so then up here, my annual goal is now altogether, given multiplication problems requiring double-digit multiplication, Kitty will solve them at a 70% accuracy, 4 out of 5 trials, by 5/13/22. So I'm sorry, I'm reading at the same time. I'm reading the chat box. So that is where it goes in. Then we drop down. If there was an ESY goal, you would mark it as ESY, and then go in and drop in. And again, we have these little bitty arrows. They're small, and that means there's something in there. So I can drop that down and find my person responsible. There we go. And then how will the parent be informed? Again, that's your normal drop downs. I'm going to use progress monitoring. And then the frequency towards the progress goals, we can make it 9 weeks. And then if I had any other comments I wanted to make in there, I would certainly make it in there, okay? So that's how you actually get your goal to show up. Now, when the goal prints, it will print exactly like what you're used to seeing printed. Your team, when they are looking at a draft document or a finalized document, is looking at it just like it looked before. This is all just the workspace changing. Everything is there that was there before. It's just kind of in a little bit of a different area. And so from here, I can either save it, or I can then just add another goal. I'm just going to go ahead and save. So once that is saved, now I have the opportunity to scroll down a little bit further and now I'm going to add my evaluation procedure. So I go over to the blue link, I click on it, and I can either do a custom evaluation procedure or I can use the drop down and add the evaluation procedure, which is going to be work samples. And there's not a subtest to that, but if there were, then those would show up. And then I pick my score type, which is percentage, and I save it. Once I save that, then again, I can see, this talking and doing is just not good for me. We said that that was a work sample, and I wanted to save that, and I should be able to go in and put in my target score right underneath that. Again, this is a staging site. They are still, here it is, now it's down here. And so now I can actually put in my target score, and I can put in my target date, which is still going to be 1 year from now, so I just changed the date, okay? And now I can save it, and all of my information is in there. I have my work sample, I have my subtask percentage, 70%, my target date. I can go in and edit from here if I've made a mistake and I want to make that an 80%. I can still just click on the pencil. That opens it up and edits it just like it could be before. If I had something else in here just like this one, I didn't want that, all I have to do is delete it by clicking on the trash can, say remove it, and then that's removed. So again, you still have the same functionality of being able to edit, to be able to change things, that sort of thing. So that is all in there. Now, if you're adding objectives to this goal, you still do the same thing. You just go into your objectives, you add your objective, you do exactly the same thing. You put in your baseline, and then you can write your objective just like you did before. So you put in your baseline. I'm just going to write in comment. I'm just going to write in comment just so that you can see how it begins to fill again just like it did. Whatever you end up writing in there, your criteria, et cetera, and it just writes in when you're finished. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to put in your date, your evaluation procedures, et cetera, and then just save it. And it will do it exactly like it does the goals. Is there any questions about that? I'm going to go over and try to take a look real quick at the...
Bobette, I'm going to answer a question from David in the chat. He asked if we have to add the percentage for criteria in the initial writing of the goals and again in the evaluation procedures. It's important when you're writing the goal to make sure the goal itself is a SMART goal, and then the evaluation procedure is just an additional piece to document specifically for progress monitoring.
All right. I think Lisa wants to know when they're required to add objectives. That was sent to me privately.
Objectives are required for students that are taking the alternate assessment or the DLM. Those are synonymous. And if a district requires that for all students, you need to abide by district requirements. But from the state, it is only required for students taking the alternate assessment. But remember to ask your district if you have any questions on if they have different standards on that than the state does.
Okay. Any other questions? I want to make sure that I didn't get any to me that you
There's one in the
questions
box asking about the baseline comments on writing goals.
Okay.
We do want to make sure that we have this data because it does help drive where you're writing the goal. This is a new component to the IEP and to EDPlan, but it is an important piece to just give that background of why you're writing that goal and so that you're thinking critically about what the student really needs.
I'll just point out navigation-wise on this page that if you are wanting to this little slider, and it's not populated yet, but this is where you can go to a next page. You can also, this little green button is a save and continue, and will take you to the next page, and this orange one will take you backwards just to answer those questions on what those are. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions about the goal and objective functionality of the page that I can help you with in EDPlan, or any policy and procedure questions about that the State Department can answer for you? Debbie, okay.
Yeah, Debbie in the chat asked if there's a minimum number of goals needed to address a student area of weakness, and no, we do not require a certain amount. It's all about the student's individualized needs. You don't want to have so many goals that it's impossible to measure all of them and to keep track of all of them. So really do think through what those high priority items are that the team decides together need to be addressed. But no, there is not a minimum or maximum number of goals to address student needs.
Remember, when you're talking about a student who struggles with a specific reading skill, that skill could be accomplished across different parts of the curriculum. Reading can be addressed in history or social studies or science. And so you don't necessarily have to have goals that reflect a specific subject area, but it could be that you're working on reading, like I said, with regards to a history text or something like that. Another question. For Terry, is the goal page still tied to the assessment page when it comes to errors? That is something that I think that they're working on. So hopefully that won't be an issue for the new platform when it's not new platform, but new look when it's launched.
And with the goals, the assessment to goals, obviously you want that background data. You want to make sure that you do have present level and assessments to back up those goals that you're writing, just to continue and give additional feedback for those, the baseline and why you're writing that goal. However, we are working to make sure that that is a team determination to put the assessments and to make sure that you're monitoring to make sure that you have that appropriate assessment data in your IEP.
Lisa, we haven't seen the new progress monitoring piece yet, so I really can't answer that question, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
And Bobette, I believe it's true that the progress monitoring has not changed, correct?
That is true. Progress monitoring will remain the same. It doesn't look different. It doesn't function different at all. It's identical.
Does the baseline data show up on the IEP when it's printed out, Bobette?
I think there's some discussion going on with that and some decisions that are being made on where the previous goals will show up or the previous information. And so I'm not comfortable saying what that answer is because I think it's still under discussion.
Stephanie, that's an idea. I know with the progress monitoring, you can print a progress report from that using the progress monitoring wizard. But if you have additional questions on that, you can either call us at the State Department or you can submit a request on to PCG through EDPlan.
Any other questions? Stephanie, probably, I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay, remember that you can contact Michelle or I at the State Department. We would be happy to give you additional feedback or additional answer additional questions there. And we are so thankful to have had Bobette walk us through those steps. So thank you, Bobette.
Okay, and if you all are needing a certificate, if you'll look up, if you'll look up above, I think I have messed up some stuff here as I'm trying to do 3 things at once, sorry. Let me just give you that again. There is a link up at the top. If you'll go there and fill out that Survey Monkey, once you put in and submit that with your email address, you'll receive a certificate in that email account within 2 business days showing your participation, okay? All right. Is there anything else to add? All right. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming. We always appreciate it when you take time out of your day to learn and see and grow with us and give us your insights. And I want to thank you again for that. And I'm going to, when I do log you off, it will still take you to the same link that I gave you. So you may want to just go to it directly from that link, or you can go through the process of going through the pages and then getting to that page. So if you have any problems, be sure and write us on the message board. You have any suggestions or comments, write us on the message board. We will make sure and share that with the team and try to follow up with any other questions you may have. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday.
Have a great